The day I discovered my husband had emptied our savings account, I was standing in line at Whole Foods, watching the cashier void items from my grocery order one by one because my card kept declining. "I'm so sorry," I mumbled, my face burning as other customers shifted impatiently behind me. "There must be some mistake. Could you try it again?" The cashier's pitying look only made it worse. I knew my account should have had over $50,000 in it, the remains of my inheritance from Grandma Rose, carefully saved over the past 5 years of marriage. My name is Julia Parker, and that humiliating moment in the grocery store was just the beginning of discovering how thoroughly my husband had betrayed my trust. I'd met Daniel at a charity gala 6 years ago. I was there representing the investment firm where I worked as a junior analyst. He was a rising star at a prestigious law firm. He seemed different from the other lawyers I'd met. Warmer, funnier, more down to earth. When he asked for my number, I gave it without hesitation. Our courtship was a whirlwind. Daniel was charming, attentive, and seemed genuinely interested in my work and opinions. "You're not like other women," he'd say, making me feel special even as something in the back of my mind whispered that this wasn't actually a compliment. We married after a year of dating. The wedding was everything I dreamed of, paid for mostly by my grandmother's inheritance. She'd passed away just months before I met Daniel, leaving me a modest but significant sum. "You've always been the practical one," she told me during one of our last conversations. "Promise me you'll invest this wisely, make it grow." I nodded, holding her frail hand. "I promise, Grandma." And I have been practical. At first, I kept most of the inheritance in a separate savings account, using only a small portion for the wedding and our first home's down payment. Daniel had his own money from his law practice, and we agreed to maintain some financial independence while sharing household expenses. The problem started subtly. Daniel would talk about investment opportunities that seemed too good to be true. "It's a sure thing," he'd say, eyes bright with excitement. "We could double our money in months." I'd express skepticism, drawing on my financial background to point out the risks. He'd grow defensive, accusing me of not supporting his ambitions. To keep the peace, I'd eventually agree to small investments, always from our joint account, never from my inheritance. Some of these ventures paid off, feeding his confidence. Others failed, but Daniel always had explanations that shifted blame elsewhere. Still, we were doing well enough that I didn't worry too much. His law practice was thriving, and my career at the investment firm was advancing steadily. Then came the day he discovered online poker. It started innocently enough, a few games in the evening to unwind after work. I didn't think much of it at first. Daniel had always been competitive, and this seemed like a harmless way to channel that energy. But soon he was playing every night, sometimes until dawn. He'd skip dinner, forget appointments, and snap at me if I suggested he take a break. The laptop screen's glow became a constant presence in our bedroom, accompanied by the soft click of keys and occasional muttered curses. "You're working too hard," he'd say when I expressed concern about his late nights. "I'm just having a little fun. Besides, I'm actually pretty good at this." I wanted to believe him. I wanted to trust that my Harvard-educated lawyer husband knew what he was doing. But the signs were there if I'd been willing to see them. The credit card bills started climbing. Small charges at first, $50 here, $100 there, all to online gaming sites. Then larger amounts. When I questioned them, Daniel would grow defensive. "I earn good money," he'd say, his voice taking on that edge I'd learned to dread. "I can spend it how I want." But it wasn't just his money he was spending. I discovered he'd been moving funds from our joint account to cover his gaming losses. Still, the inheritance account was separate, secure. Or so I thought. What I didn't know then was that while I'd been working late one night, Daniel had found my banking information. He'd watched me enter my passwords enough times to guess them. And once he had access, the temptation proved too strong. The scene at Whole Foods was just the beginning. When I got home and checked my accounts, I felt physically ill. The inheritance account, my safety net, my promise to Grandma Rose, was empty. Every penny transferred to various gambling sites over the past month. I sat in my car in a Whole Foods parking lot, trying to breathe through the panic. That's when I remembered something that made my hands stop shaking. Daniel didn't know about all of my accounts. 2 years ago, I'd made an investment that I'd never told him about. It had seemed insignificant at the time, almost embarrassing in its modesty. A small tech startup was looking for early investors. The founder was a former client who'd broken away from her big tech job to pursue an innovative idea in artificial intelligence. It's risky, she'd admitted during our lunch meeting. But I really believe in this technology. We're doing something no one else has tried. I'd studied their business plan carefully, drawing on all my years of investment experience. The technology was revolutionary, a new approach to machine learning that could transform multiple industries. The team was brilliant and dedicated, and the initial investment requirement was surprisingly low. I'd taken $10,000 from my personal account, money I'd saved from my annual bonuses, and invested it privately. I didn't tell Daniel because I knew what he'd say. He'd call it foolish, risky, a waste of money that could be spent on sure things. The paperwork was in my maiden name, the communications sent to my private email account. It was my secret, my independent decision, my way of proving to myself that I could still make choices without seeking his approval. Now, sitting in my car and staring at my empty inheritance account, I pulled out my phone and checked that private email for the first time in weeks. There were dozens of unread messages from the tech company. My hands trembled as I opened the most recent one. Dear Ms. Matthews, my maiden name. We are pleased to inform you that following our successful Series C funding round and recent acquisition offers, your initial investment of $10,000 has appreciated significantly. Based on current valuations, your equity stake is now worth approximately $3.2 million. I read the number 3 times before it sank in. My small secret investment, the one Daniel would have mocked, had just made me a millionaire. The irony might have made me laugh if I wasn't so angry. While my husband had been gambling away our savings on rigged online poker games, my careful investment in real innovation had paid off beyond my wildest dreams. I sat there in the parking lot watching the sun set behind the grocery store and made a decision. I wouldn't tell Daniel about this windfall. Not yet. First, I needed to understand exactly how deep his gambling problem went and what else he might be hiding from me. I drove home slowly, rehearsing what I would say about the emptied inheritance account. But when I walked through our front door, I realized I didn't need to say anything at all. Daniel was sitting at our dining room table, surrounded by empty whiskey glasses, his laptop open to an online poker site. His usually perfectly styled hair was a mess, his expensive shirt wrinkled and stained. I can explain, he slurred, not meeting my eyes. I had a system, it was working. I just needed a little more capital to make it pay off. I stood there in our tastefully decorated foyer, looking at this man I thought I knew, this brilliant lawyer who turned into a gambling addict before my eyes, and felt nothing but cold clarity. How much did you lose? I asked quietly. He flinched at my tone. It's not about losing. I've got it under control. I just need a little more time, a little more money. How much, Daniel? He named a figure that made my stomach turn. It was more than just my inheritance. He'd taken out loans, maxed out credit cards, even borrowed from clients' escrow accounts. But I've got a tip on a sure thing, he continued, his words running together. This guy I met online, he's got inside information about a poker tournament. If I can just get a stake together. I walked past him to our home office and began methodically going through our files. The more I dug, the worse it got. Our mortgage was months behind. The car loans were in default. Even our health insurance had lapsed. Daniel followed me, still talking, still making excuses. It's my money to lose, he said at one point, his voice taking on that familiar defensive edge. I earned it. I work hard. You don't understand how these things work. I turned to face him, this man who gambled away not just our savings but our future, and felt a strange sense of calm. You're right, I said softly. I don't understand how these things work. I only understand solid investments, careful planning, and actual business strategy. You know, the boring stuff. He didn't catch my sarcasm. He was too busy pulling up his laptop, trying to show me his system for beating the odds at online poker. I left him there, stumbling through explanations of betting strategies and inside tips, and went upstairs to our bedroom. In the back of my closet was a small fireproof safe that Daniel didn't know about. Inside were copies of my most important documents, including the original investment agreement for the tech startup. I took everything to my car, along with enough clothes for a few days. Daniel didn't even notice me leaving. He was too absorbed in his poker game, chasing another loss with money we no longer had. I spent that night in a hotel, methodically making lists and planning my next steps. My investment firm background proved useful. I knew exactly how to document financial fraud and protect assets. The next morning, I visited 3 banks. At the first, I opened a new account in my maiden name. At the second, I transferred my tech investment proceeds as soon as it cleared. At the third, I retrieved everything from our joint safe deposit box, including the jewelry Grandma Rose had left me, which thankfully Daniel didn't know about. Then I called Amanda Torres, a divorce attorney I'd met at a women's leadership conference last year. She listened quietly as I outlined the situation. The gambling, the hidden debt, the theft from client accounts. This is serious, Julia, she said. He could face disbarment, possibly criminal charges. Are you sure you want to pursue this? I thought about all the times Daniel had dismissed my financial concerns, had treated my careful planning as a joke, had made decisions about our future without consulting me. Yes, I said firmly. I want everything documented and handled legally. He needs to face the consequences of his actions. Amanda nodded. I'll start the paperwork. In the meantime, don't confront him about anything. Let him think you're still in the dark about the extent of his gambling. We need to protect your assets before he can do any more damage. I returned to our house that evening to find Daniel still at his laptop, though he'd at least changed clothes. Empty takeout containers littered the kitchen counter. Where were you? He asked, barely looking up from his screen. I tried to use your card for dinner, but it was declined. At work, I lied smoothly. There must be some problem with the bank. I'll check on it tomorrow. He grunted, already absorbed back in his game. I watched him for a moment, this stranger who had replaced my brilliant, ambitious husband, and felt a mix of pity and disgust. Over the next few weeks, I played the role of concerned but oblivious wife perfectly. I acted appropriately distressed about our banking problems, while quietly working with Amanda to document every aspect of Daniel's financial misconduct. The evidence was damning. Not only had he emptied our personal accounts, but he'd also misappropriated client funds from his law firm's escrow accounts to cover gambling debts. He'd taken out high-interest loans from questionable sources. He even mortgaged our house a second time by forging my signature. Meanwhile, my secret investment continued to appreciate. The tech company was generating buzz in all the right circles, with major players expressing interest in either acquisition or partnership. Then came the morning I'd been preparing for. I was sitting at our kitchen table when Daniel stumbled downstairs, looking haggard. Julia, he said, his voice rough, we need to talk. There's been some financial difficulties. I took a sip of my coffee. Oh, it's temporary, he rushed to add. Just a cash flow issue. But I need you to do something for me. I need you to take out a loan against your retirement account. I set my cup down carefully. Why? It's complicated. Some investments didn't pan out as expected, but I have a plan to turn it around. There's this high-stakes game tonight. No. The word hung in the air between us. Daniel blinked, as if he'd misheard. What? I said no. I won't give you any more money to gamble away. His face darkened. You don't understand. This is different. I have inside information. Like you had inside information about the last game, and the one before that. How much have you lost, Daniel? Do you even know? He stared at me, realization slowly dawning. You've been checking up on me. Someone had to. Since you clearly lost the ability to distinguish between gambling and investing. It's my money, he shouted, mask finally slipping. I earned it. I have the right to spend it how I want. I pulled out a thick folder and laid it on the table. Actually, it wasn't just your money. You stole my inheritance. You forged my signature. You embezzled from your clients. Would you like to see the documentation? His face went pale as I began laying out papers. Bank statements, loan documents, credit card bills, screenshots of his gambling accounts. How did you? I'm an investment analyst, Daniel. Did you really think I wouldn't figure it out? Did you think I wouldn't keep records? He collapsed into a chair, all the fight draining out of him. I can explain. To me? Or to the Bar Association? Because they'll be very interested in what happened to those client accounts. You wouldn't? I already have. I stood up, gathering the documents. The ethics committee received my report this morning. The police should be here soon to discuss the forgery charges. As if on cue, we heard sirens in the distance. Daniel's face crumpled. I'll lose everything, he whispered. My license, my practice, my reputation. You already lost everything. I corrected him. You just didn't know it yet. He looked up at me, desperate now. I'll get help. I'll go to therapy. We can work this out. No, Daniel, we can't. But let me give you one last piece of investment advice. When you're in a hole, stop digging. The police arrived moments later. I watched from our front porch as they led him away, still protesting that he could explain everything. My phone buzzed. An email from the tech company. Another major firm had made an acquisition offer. My investment was now worth close to $5 million. Over the next few months, Daniel's life unraveled exactly as expected. He was disbarred. Criminal charges were filed. Our house went into foreclosure due to his secret second mortgage. But I was prepared. I'd already found a beautiful condo in a quieter part of town. I transferred to a new position at my firm, heading up their tech investment division. Life was moving forward. 6 months after Daniel's arrest, I received a letter from him at his court-mandated rehabilitation facility. I finally understand what happened, he wrote. I got caught up in the thrill of quick wins and forgot about real value. You were right about everything. I don't expect forgiveness, but I want you to know that I regret losing you more than anything else. I folded the letter and slipped it into a drawer. Maybe someday I'd find it in my heart to forgive him. But for now, I had more important things to focus on. My phone rang. The tech company's CEO calling about their upcoming IPO. After hanging up, I sat at my new desk, looking out over the city lights, and opened my grandmother's old jewelry box. Inside was the note she'd left with my inheritance. Remember, dear one, true wealth isn't about quick gains or lucky breaks. It's about patience, wisdom, and believing in real value. Never let anyone tell you your cautious nature is a weakness. In the long game, the careful investor always wins. I smiled, touching her familiar handwriting. You were right, Grandma, about everything. Last week, I saw Daniel's name in the paper. He completed his rehabilitation program and was working as a paralegal at a small firm. Unable to practice law but trying to rebuild his life. The article mentioned he was still paying restitution to his former clients. Meanwhile, the tech company went public. My initial $10,000 investment, the one Daniel would have ridiculed as overly cautious and boring, is now worth over $12 million. I've started a foundation in Grandma Rose's name, providing investment education and support for women leaving financially abusive relationships. We teach them about more than just money. We teach them about value, self-worth, and the power of trusting their own judgment. Sometimes I think about that day in Whole Foods, watching the cashier void my groceries while my card was declined. I remember the shame, the confusion, the helplessness. But mostly, I remember the moment I decided to take control of my own destiny. Daniel's gambling addiction destroyed his life, but it also freed me to build something better. In trying to break me, he only proved what I'd known all along. That slow, steady growth beats quick wins every time. Yesterday, I received another acquisition offer for my stake in the tech company. The number made even my experienced eyes widen. As I sat in my office, calculating potential returns, I thought about how far I'd come from that scared woman in the grocery store. I declined the offer. After all, I've learned the most valuable lesson in both business and life. Sometimes the best investment you can make is in yourself.